Keanu Reeves is introduced in a way that stands in stark contrast to the world around him. At Los Angeles International Airport, he waits in line for a first-class flight, dressed simply in a plaid shirt, worn-out jeans, and scuffed boots. He carries a backpack that looks as if it has traveled the world with him, its edges frayed and its fabric well-worn. While the rest of the passengers are adorned in expensive suits and perfectly polished shoes, Keanu's unassuming appearance goes unnoticed by many, but it's precisely this simplicity that sets him apart in a profound way. What is most striking about Keanu is not just his attire, but the way he carries himself. In the bustling and often chaotic atmosphere of the airport, where people are rushing about, hurried and anxious, Keanu stands with a quiet calm. He does not seem flustered by the long lines, the constant flow of travelers, or the noise that surrounds him. In fact, he exudes an aura of tranquility, as if the chaos is merely background noise to his own peaceful existence. While others around him are likely impatient or distracted, Keanu remains composed, unaffected by the frenzy of the moment. His calm demeanor radiates a sense of inner peace that is rare in a place where time and status are often at the forefront of people's minds. This sense of serenity is further highlighted when he is placed in direct contrast with another passenger, Victor Harding, a man who is the epitome of arrogance. Victor is dressed in a sharp, expensive suit, his polished shoes and heavy cologne almost demanding attention. He exudes confidence, or perhaps overconfidence, and clearly believes that his wealth and status entitle him to superiority. When he notices Keanu in the first-class line, he can't help but make a cutting remark, mocking Keanu for looking out of place. But Keanu, in his usual way, does not react in anger or frustration. Instead, he responds with a quiet, almost philosophical demeanor, saying, "The world is full of surprises." This simple response is enough to show that Keanu is unmoved by Victor's arrogance. As the story unfolds, Keanu's simplicity becomes a powerful force. His quiet, humble nature stands in stark contrast to the ostentatious displays of wealth and status around him. Keanu does not need to prove anything to anyone. He does not rely on outward appearances or grand gestures to define his worth. His authenticity, his calm presence, and the way he treats others, regardless of their status, reveal a far greater strength than any designer suit or expensive watch could ever convey. This stark contrast between Keanu's simplicity and the arrogance of others serves as a powerful reminder that true greatness lies not in what you possess or how you present yourself, but in the way you live your life and treat those around you. Keanu's simplicity is not just a matter of appearance. It is a reflection of his character, his peace of mind, and his belief that the world is much more than the superficial status symbols we often place so much value on. Victor Harding, a man who epitomizes arrogance and wealth, is introduced as the stark contrast to Keanu Reeves's calm simplicity. Dressed in an expensive suit, polished shoes, and exuding the scent of a costly cologne, Victor's every movement seems meticulously planned to convey an air of superiority. With his confident stride and arrogant gaze, he clearly views himself as someone who is important, deserving of attention, and entitled to the luxuries he enjoys. When he spots Keanu in the first-class line, dressed casually and carrying a weathered backpack, he can't hide his disdain. His immediate reaction is to belittle Keanu, as if his appearance alone disqualifies him from being in such an exclusive space. Victor's words are laced with irony as he comments, "First class, huh? You never know who might show up here these days. He makes it clear that in his mind, people like Keanu simply don't belong in first class. He doesn't stop there, pushing further by commenting that it's rare to see someone so casual in such an elite environment. Victor seems to relish in this moment of judgment, fully convinced that he is in a position of power, that he is the one who gets to decide who belongs where. However, Keanu, ever the picture of serenity, doesn't rise to the provocation. He responds calmly, without anger or defensiveness, offering only a brief remark about the world being full of surprises. This response leaves Victor frustrated and uncomfortable, expecting some kind of reaction or justification. But instead, Keanu's quiet demeanor only deepens the sense of unease in him. Victor's attempt to assert dominance is met with the peaceful indifference of a man who knows that his worth isn't determined by appearances or the opinions of others. This interaction between Victor and Keanu reveals a deeper truth, that people like Victor, who place so much value on their outward success, often feel the need to belittle others to reinforce their own sense of importance. Yet Keanu's example shows that true strength comes from within, not from what you wear, how much you have, or how loudly you assert your superiority. It's in the quiet confidence, the ability to remain unaffected by the arrogance of others, and the recognition that genuine worth is not something that can be flaunted, but rather earned through actions and kindness. Keanu Reeves's calmness in the face of Victor Harding's provocations is nothing short of remarkable. As the flight continues, the stark contrast between the two men becomes even more evident, showcasing the power of serenity and patience in the face of arrogance. After their initial exchange, where Victor attempted to assert his superiority over Keanu with sarcastic comments, Keanu remained unfazed, not rising to any of Victor's bait. His silence, paired with his composed demeanor, created an unsettling atmosphere for Victor, who seemed to expect some kind of confrontation. In a world where people often feel the need to assert themselves, especially in the face of others they deem inferior, Keanu's lack of reaction became more powerful than any words could have been. While Victor was busy trying to provoke Keanu into a verbal altercation, Keanu's quiet responses left Victor in an uncomfortable state of confusion. Each time Victor tried to assert his position, Keanu merely met his words with a calmness that seemed to strip away the power of Victor's insults. Keanu's calmness wasn't just a response to Victor's jabs. It was a reflection of his inner peace and strength. The more Victor pushed, the more Keanu's stillness radiated, making Victor's arrogance seem increasingly hollow. This dynamic became even more striking during the in-flight service, where the flight attendant offered drinks to the first-class passengers. Victor, eager to assert his status once more, ordered champagne with an air of confidence, signaling that he deserved the luxury of the finest drinks. But when the flight attendant reached Keanu, he simply asked for water. The contrast between the two requests was as glaring as their personalities. Victor, already brimming with self-importance, scoffed at Keanu's choice, mocking him for wasting the experience of flying first class with something so simple. Keanu, however, responded with grace, explaining that sometimes simplicity is enough. His words, delivered with such calmness, left Victor momentarily taken aback, unable to understand why someone in his position would choose water over champagne. As the conversation continued, Keanu's words revealed a deeper wisdom. He spoke of the value of simplicity, of the notion that true satisfaction does not come from indulgence or outward displays of wealth, but from a deeper sense of contentment and humility. Keanu's ability to remain unfazed, even when Victor launched into more pointed jabs, began to shift the atmosphere in the cabin. While Victor continued to try and elevate himself, the passengers around them were beginning to take note of the subtle tension. They observed how Victor's need for validation clashed with Keanu's quiet dignity. The more Victor tried to put Keanu down, the more his own arrogance became apparent, and the more Keanu's inner peace shone through, untouched by the provocations. What was truly remarkable about Keanu's behavior was his ability to deflect the attempts to rattle him without saying much. He didn't engage in a battle of words. Instead, he allowed his actions, his composure, and his quiet wisdom to speak for him. As Victor's provocations grew sharper, Keanu remained a pillar of serenity, calmly responding with phrases that made Victor's arrogance seem childish and misplaced. It was a testament to the power of inner strength and emotional intelligence, the ability to rise above petty insults and to remain grounded in one's own values. Keanu's calmness was not just about staying silent. It was about showing the world that true greatness isn't about what you say or what you have, but about how you treat others and how you handle adversity. Each time Victor tried to bring him down, Keanu responded with nothing more than a look or a few carefully chosen words. And each time, Victor found himself unable to regain the upper hand. In the end, it was not Victor's status or wealth that commanded respect in that first-class cabin. It was Keanu's quiet, unwavering dignity. Keanu's serenity not only caused Victor to lose control of the situation, but also made the other passengers question the true nature of success, respect, and personal worth. Through his calmness, Keanu proved that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. As the flight progressed, the tension between Keanu Reeves and Victor Harding escalated, revealing the stark differences in their character. After their initial exchange in the airport, where Keanu calmly absorbed Victor's condescending remarks, the two found themselves sitting next to each other in first class. The moment they settled into their seats, the discomfort was palpable. Victor, still unable to shake off his feelings of superiority, let out a low chuckle, muttering, "You've got to be kidding me." His disbelief was evident as he realized that the man he had mocked was now seated beside him in the very same exclusive space he believed he owned. Victor's arrogance, which had initially been fueled by the luxury surrounding him, began to fray at the edges as the flight wore on. He found himself unable to fully enjoy the comfort of first class, his mind still preoccupied with the unsettling presence of Keanu. Despite the fact that they were both in the same elite section of the plane, Victor couldn't shake the feeling that the man beside him didn't belong there. Keanu, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease, unaffected by the irony of the situation. He didn't need to assert himself or make a point. His mere presence in that space spoke volumes. The contrast between the two was impossible to ignore. Victor, unable to control his discomfort, decided to engage in conversation. However, it was clear that his intention was not to make small talk, but to further belittle Keanu. With a sarcastic smile, he asked, "So what do you do for a living?" His tone was dismissive, as if he already knew the answer and was simply waiting for confirmation. Keanu, without missing a beat, replied simply, "I work in film." Victor, clearly unimpressed, raised an eyebrow, assuming that Keanu's work was beneath him. "Oh, I see. Commercials, small-time stuff," he quipped. expecting Keanu to flinch or defend himself. But Keanu remained calm, offering only a subtle smile and a response that showed no signs of offense. Victor, frustrated by Keanu's lack of reaction, pushed further, making cutting remarks about the worth of certain people and spaces. He pointed out how first class was for those who had earned it, implying that Keanu, with his humble appearance, couldn't possibly fit in. But Keanu's responses were measured and composed, a direct contrast to Victor's growing irritation. Keanu spoke about how everyone has their place in the world, and that sometimes the value of a person is not found in their outward appearance or material success. His calmness and philosophical words left Victor momentarily speechless, unable to retort in a way that would uphold his self-created superiority. This moment in the story highlights a crucial turning point. Victor, who had initially felt secure in his social position and material wealth, began to question his assumptions. Keanu's quiet dignity and self-assurance made him realize that true worth wasn't about external validation or the opinions of others. It was about how one treated others and carried themselves in the face of adversity. Keanu's gentle deflection of Victor's jabs showed that strength doesn't come from putting others down. It comes from remaining true to oneself, unaffected by the arrogance or judgments of others. As the conversation unfolded, the passengers around them began to notice, subtly shifting their focus from the brashness of Victor to the peaceful strength of Keanu, underscoring the contrast between superficial wealth and genuine inner peace. As the flight progressed, the truth about Keanu Reeves' identity was finally revealed, and it was a moment that would forever change Victor Harding's perception of the man he had so arrogantly judged. Keanu, whose unassuming presence had initially been dismissed by Victor, was not just any ordinary traveler. He was Keanu Reeves, one of the most well-known and respected actors in Hollywood. The flight attendant's polite announcement, informing Keanu of his confirmed connection in Tokyo, and the captain's best regards, sent ripples of realization through the cabin. The name Reeves echoed through the first-class section, and Victor froze, his face draining of color as he began to piece together the truth. The man he had mocked, underestimated, and belittled themselves. Victor's apology, though hesitant, was the first step toward a much-needed change. He acknowledged that his earlier behavior was born from a sense of superiority that had no real foundation. Keanu, ever the embodiment of grace, accepted the apology, but he didn't stop there. He offered a lesson that would stay with Victor long after the flight ended. Keanu explained that life was not about proving oneself to others or flaunting one's achievements. It was about understanding what truly mattered. Sometimes what we search for most in the world is what we find least within ourselves, Keanu remarked thoughtfully, leaving Victor to reflect on the emptiness behind his outward displays of wealth and status. The lesson was not just about humility, it was about self-awareness and the importance of looking inward. Keanu's words resonated deeply within Victor, leaving him in a state of quiet contemplation. The realization that he had been living a life driven by ego and external validation was sobering. Keanu's calm, unassuming nature had served as a mirror, showing Victor that there was much more to life than the shallow pursuit of wealth and recognition. Keanu's example, his ability to remain composed and dignified, even in the face of judgment, was a reminder that true greatness is found in how we treat others and how we carry ourselves in moments of challenge. It was a lesson Victor would not soon forget, one that would reshape his understanding of success and what it meant to truly live a meaningful life. As the flight continued, the transformation within Victor Harding became undeniable. The realization that Keanu Reeves, the man he had so cruelly judged and mocked, was a global superstar had shaken him to his core. Victor, who had walked onto the plane, exuding arrogance and superiority, now found himself struggling with an uncomfortable truth. His own behavior had been rooted in insecurity, not strength. For the first time, he was faced with the reality that his need to belittle others, to elevate himself, only revealed his own deep-seated fears and inadequacies. Keanu, in contrast, had handled the entire situation with unmatched grace. His response to Victor's provocations had not been one of confrontation or anger, but of quiet wisdom and patience. Each time Victor attempted to insult or put him down, Keanu simply responded with calm, philosophical answers that left Victor floundering. Keanu didn't need to defend himself or prove anything. His unshakable sense of self and humility stood in stark contrast to Victor's need for validation. The more Victor attempted to push, the more Keanu's serenity radiated, making Victor's arrogance seem increasingly hollow. The true turning point came when Keanu delivered his final, poignant lesson about life. Victor, feeling increasingly exposed, tried to save face by attacking Keanu's simplicity, suggesting that people who didn't flaunt their achievements were simply trying to cover up their lack of success. But Keanu, without a hint of defensiveness, calmly responded, "Sometimes the people who talk the most about what they have are the ones who feel the emptiest inside." These words struck Victor like a bolt of lightning. It was as if Keanu had seen straight through him, unraveling his carefully constructed facade in an instant. Victor, for the first time in his life, was forced to confront the emptiness inside him, the desperate need for recognition that had driven his every action. The moment of reckoning was profound. As Victor sat there, overwhelmed by Keanu's words, he realized that true success wasn't about how much you had or how loudly you proclaimed your achievements. It was about how you treated others, how you showed up in the world without needing to prove your worth through superficial displays of wealth and status. Keanu, in his quiet way, had stripped away the layers of ego that Victor had clung to for so long. For the first time, Victor saw that humility, kindness, and the ability to reflect inwardly were the true markers of a person's worth. By the end of the flight, Victor's arrogance had dissipated, replaced by a sense of humility he had never known. The weight of Keanu's words hung heavily in the air, leaving Victor in silent contemplation. For the first time, he understood that success wasn't about elevating oneself above others. It was about elevating others, treating them with respect, and living a life grounded in humility. Keanu's influence had not only humbled him, but had given him the opportunity to begin changing the way he viewed the world and his place in it. As the flight came to an end, Victor knew that this encounter with Keanu would stay with him, reshaping his perspective and guiding him toward a more meaningful, self-aware life. By the time the flight neared its end, a profound shift had taken place within Victor Harding. What had started as an arrogant display of superiority had now turned into a deep self-reflection. Throughout the journey, Victor had tried to assert his dominance through sharp words and dismissive gestures, believing his wealth and status gave him the right to judge others. He had mocked Keanu Reeves for being too casual for first class, convinced that someone like Keanu didn't belong in such an exclusive space. Yet, By the end of the flight, Victor had been forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that his judgments were hollow and that true worth had little to do with outward appearances or material success. Keanu's response to Victor's provocations had been nothing short of transformative. Rather than engaging in a battle of egos, Keanu remained composed and grounded, offering quiet wisdom that unraveled Victor's arrogance. Through each gentle remark, Keanu showed Victor that greatness was not measured by how much one flaunted, but by the kindness and respect one showed to others. Keanu had let his actions, not his fame, speak for him, and in doing so, he had exposed the emptiness behind Victor's need to assert his superiority. The turning point came when Keanu, in his typical calm manner, shared a simple but profound truth. The real world is made by people, and in the end, how we treat others says more about who we are than anything else. This statement, so quietly powerful, hit Victor like a ton of bricks. The realization that he had spent his life trying to prove something to others, when true success came from treating others with respect and humility, was both humbling and eye-opening. For the first time, Victor began to question his own behavior and the values that had driven him. He had been so focused on gaining approval and recognition from others that he had lost sight of what truly mattered. The encounter with Keanu had become a mirror, reflecting the emptiness of his ego-driven existence. As the flight ended, Victor knew he was a changed man. His arrogance had been replaced by a newfound humility, and for the first time, he was ready to live a life that prioritized kindness, self-awareness, and the understanding that respect is earned, not demanded. In today's world, it's easy to get caught up in the rush of life, especially with the pressure of social media and material success. But remember, true success and happiness often come from how we treat others and how we carry ourselves in everyday situations. Like in the story of Keanu Reeves, the lesson is clear. Kindness, humility, and staying true to yourself are the things that truly matter. For older adults, embracing simplicity and focusing on what brings joy, whether it's spending time with loved ones or pursuing passions, can lead to a fulfilling, peaceful life. Don't measure your worth by what others think or by material possessions. Measure it by the love and respect you give and receive.